The Galactic Council had seen thousands of planets across the universe. Some worlds were beautiful garden planets filled with calm oceans and soft skies. Others were cold frozen worlds where only the toughest species could live. Every civilization in the galaxy believed that intelligent life only appeared on safe and stable planets. Then they discovered Earth. When the first deep space probes scanned the small blue planet, the Council scientists thought the data was broken. The planet was completely unstable. Massive storms formed across its oceans. Lightning storms burned across the sky. The planet's surface constantly moved with earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. Dangerous predators lived everywhere, both on land and in the sea. Even the smallest creatures carried venom or deadly diseases. Then there was the gravity. Earth's gravity was far stronger than most civilized worlds in the galaxy. Many alien species could barely stand under that pressure. One Council scientist finally spoke the words everyone was thinking. This planet should not have intelligent life. The planet was immediately given a dangerous classification. Level 12 Death World. Normally, planets like that only produced simple animals that fought each other for survival. Intelligent civilizations never evolved on such worlds. But the scans continued. And what they found shocked the entire galaxy. A species had evolved there. Humans. At first, the Council members were silent as they studied the recordings of human cities, machines, and space launches. Then the laughter began. They survived that world, one tall alien ambassador said, shaking his head. Another diplomat leaned closer to the screen, watching footage of humans walking through a crowded city. They look fragile, he said with amusement. No armor. No claws. No natural weapons. The chamber filled with quiet chuckles. Across the galaxy, powerful warrior species had natural advantages. Some had skin as strong as metal armor. Others had razor-sharp claws, venom, or incredible strength. Humans had none of those things. They looked small and soft. Even their home world tried to kill them every day. One Council officer finished the official report. Humanity is a primitive death world species. Technologically developing but biologically weak. Threat level, extremely low. Most of the Council agreed immediately. To them, humans were simply another young civilization that would eventually join the galaxy and quietly follow its rules. But one member of the Council did not laugh. An older alien named Kareth of Vol sat silently at the edge of the chamber. Kareth had spent centuries studying the evolution of life on dangerous planets. He had seen how harsh environments shaped species in strange ways. As he watched the human recordings, something about them disturbed him. He noticed things the others ignored. Humans were constantly building. Cities rising from deserts. Machines flying through storms. Ships traveling across oceans that could swallow entire fleets. They did not hide from their dangerous planet. They fought it. Kareth slowly stood and spoke to the chamber. You misunderstand the Deathworlders. The room quickly grew quiet. These creatures are not weak, Kareth continued. They are survivors. A younger ambassador laughed loudly. Survivors? They barely reached space. Another Council member added, they would not survive a single galactic war. More laughter filled the chamber. Kareth tried again. On a death world, survival requires constant adaptation. Humans face danger every day of their lives. Storms, predators, disasters, yet their species continues to grow. But the Council had already made its decision. Humans were simply not impressive compared to the powerful civilizations of the galaxy. The meeting ended with casual conversation and quiet amusement. But far away, in the darkness between stars, something ancient had begun to move. For centuries, the galaxy had feared a powerful empire known as the Zalcor Dominion. The Dominion had once conquered entire star systems before suddenly disappearing into deep space. Now their fleets had returned. Massive warships began moving through the outer regions of the galaxy. Their commanders searched for weak civilizations to conquer first. When their scouts reached the edge of the human solar system, they quickly scanned the planet Earth. The report was simple. Primitive Deathworld species detected. Military strength minimal. Planet will fall within hours. Across the galaxy, the Council received the same report. Many ambassadors barely reacted. Unfortunate, one diplomat said calmly. But inevitable. Only Kareth of Val stared silently at the incoming battle predictions. He studied the human military data again and again. Something about it felt wrong. Because the more he learned about humans, the more one terrible thought began to grow in his mind. What if the galaxy had misunderstood the Deathworlders? And what if the creatures who survived a world like Earth were far more dangerous than anyone realized? Soon, the galaxy would learn the answer. The Zalcor Dominion had conquered hundreds of worlds. To them, war was simple. Their fleets arrived, their enemies surrendered, and another civilization disappeared from history. No species had ever truly stopped them. So when their massive warships entered the human solar system, the Dominion commanders expected nothing more than another quick victory. Thousands of black warships appeared near the outer edge of the system. Their weapons were powerful enough to destroy entire cities in seconds. The Dominion admiral looked at the holographic image of Earth. A primitive Deathworld species, he said calmly. Estimated resistance time. One of the officers quickly answered. Less than 3 hours. The admiral nodded. Begin the invasion. Across space, the Dominion fleet began moving toward Earth. On the planet below, human sensors quickly detected the unknown ships. Within minutes, alarms sounded across every major military command center on Earth. Screens filled with images of massive alien vessels moving closer to the planet. Inside the United Earth Defense Command, officers stared at the incoming data. The numbers were terrifying. The Dominion fleet was far larger than anything humanity had ever faced. One officer whispered, "There are thousands of them." The room fell silent. But the human commander standing at the center of the room did not look afraid. Admiral Daniel Hayes calmly studied the enemy fleet. Then he gave a simple order. Launch the fleet. Across Earth, hidden military bases suddenly came alive. Massive hangar doors opened across the planet. From oceans, deserts, mountains, and orbiting stations, human warships began rising into space. Hundreds of ships quickly formed defensive lines around the planet. Human ships looked very different from most galactic designs. They were not smooth or elegant. Their hulls were thick and heavy. Weapons covered almost every surface. Many alien engineers would have called them crude. But they were built for one purpose. War. As the Dominion fleet approached, their scanners detected the human ships forming a defensive barrier. The Dominion admiral watched the display with mild amusement. So they choose to fight. One officer laughed. Admiral, their ships are small. This will be over quickly. The admiral nodded. Destroy their fleet. Moments later, the Dominion ships opened fire. Bright beams of energy shot across space toward the human defenses. Several human ships exploded instantly. The first battle had begun. Across human communication channels, pilots and commanders spoke quickly. Enemy fire confirmed. Hold formation. Target their front line. Admiral Hayes watched the battle unfold from Earth. Then he gave another order. Release the wolves. Far from the main human fleet, several small human ships suddenly changed course. Instead of defending Earth, they accelerated directly toward the center of the Dominion fleet. Dominion officers quickly noticed the strange movement. Admiral, enemy ships are approaching the fleet. The admiral frowned. Intercept them. Dominion fighters moved to destroy the approaching human ships. But the human pilots did something unexpected. Instead of retreating, they pushed their engines harder. Their ships flew straight into the middle of the Dominion formation. Then the explosions began. The small human ships detonated with massive blasts. Entire Dominion warships were destroyed instantly. Shock spread across the Dominion command ship. The admiral stood up. They destroyed themselves. Another officer stared at the damage reports. Yes, Admiral, but they took 5 of our warships with them. Across the battlefield, more human ships began using strange and unpredictable tactics. Some ships attacked at extremely close range. Others hid behind destroyed ships and launched surprise strikes. The Dominion fleet was powerful, but they were used to enemies who fought carefully. Humans fought differently. They took risks. They attacked without hesitation. Even when the odds were impossible. For the first time in centuries, the Dominion fleet began losing ships. On Earth, Admiral Hayes watched the battle carefully. One of his officers spoke quietly. "Sir, we are losing many ships." Hayes nodded. "Yes. But so are they." Far away, across the galaxy, the Galactic Council watched the battle through long-range transmissions. Many ambassadors expected to see Earth fall within minutes. Instead, they watched something shocking. Human ships were still fighting. And somehow, the Dominion fleet was taking damage. Inside the council chamber, whispers began to spread. This was supposed to be impossible. At the edge of the room, Kareth of Vol watched the battle silently. The old strategist had feared this moment. Because the galaxy was finally seeing the truth. Humans did not fight like civilized species. They fought like creatures born on a death world. And the Dominion had just made a terrible mistake. They had started a war with survivors. Across the galaxy, billions of eyes watched the war between humanity and the Zalcor Dominion. The Galactic Council had opened emergency transmissions so every major civilization could see the battle. At first, many expected the human fleet to collapse quickly. But hours passed. Then more hours. And the Dominion fleet was still fighting. Inside the council chamber, the ambassadors sat in silence as the battle footage played on massive screens. Human ships moved across space in chaotic formations. They did not follow the clean and perfect patterns that most galactic fleets used. Instead, they moved like predators. Some ships charged directly into enemy fire. Others suddenly disappeared behind asteroids and reappeared to attack from strange angles. Several human ships even used damaged vessels as shields while firing their weapons. One alien general watching the battle looked confused. "These tactics make no sense," he said quietly. Another ambassador leaned closer to the screen. "No, they do," she replied slowly. "They are fighting like hunters." On Earth, Admiral Daniel Hayes stood inside the main command center as battle reports continued to arrive. The human fleet had already lost dozens of ships. But the Dominion fleet had lost even more. Human officers moved quickly around the command room, sending new orders to the fleet. Enemy destroyer approaching Sector 3. Redirect Squadron Delta. Launch strike drones. Every few seconds new explosions appeared on the battlefield. The Dominion ships were larger and stronger, but they fought with strict formations and predictable movements. Human ships ignored those rules. They attacked wherever they saw weakness. Near the outer edge of the battle, a group of Dominion cruisers tried to surround a smaller human squadron. From the Dominion commander's point of view, the trap was perfect. But the human ships did something unexpected. Instead of escaping, they turned toward the enemy. The squadron leader spoke calmly over the communication channel. "All ships, close distance." The small fleet accelerated straight toward the Dominion cruisers. Energy weapons fired across space, hitting several human ships. One vessel lost its engines and began drifting. But the other ships kept moving. When they reached extremely close range, their weapons opened fire all at once. Missiles slammed into the Dominion cruisers. Railgun rounds tore through their hulls. One Dominion cruiser exploded instantly. Another began spinning out of control. The Dominion commander stared at the damage in disbelief. They are attacking from point-blank range. Across the battlefield, similar fights were happening everywhere. Human pilots flew dangerously close to enemy ships. Some fighters even flew directly under larger Dominion vessels where their weapons could not easily aim. Human soldiers were trained for dangerous environments. Earth itself had prepared them for this kind of chaos. Storms. Disasters. Wild animals. Extreme temperatures. Humans had grown up surviving things that would terrify most species. A little danger in space did not scare them. In fact, many human pilots felt more alive in battle. One young pilot laughed nervously as he dodged enemy fire. "That the best they got?" His wing partner replied calmly. "Focus. 2 ships behind you." The pilot rolled his fighter sharply, allowing his partner to destroy the enemy ships with a burst of railgun fire. More Dominion vessels exploded. For the first time, fear began spreading through the Dominion fleet. Their commanders had fought many wars before. But they had never faced enemies like this. Enemies who did not retreat. Enemies who kept fighting even when they were outnumbered. Enemies who seemed to grow more dangerous the longer the battle lasted. Inside the Dominion flagship, the admiral watched the battle reports with growing anger. "Why are these primitives still fighting?" One officer answered carefully. "They appear to be ignoring standard tactical doctrine." Another officer added, "Their pilots continue attacking even after sustaining heavy damage." The admiral slammed his hand against the command console. This makes no logical sense. But far away, inside the Galactic Council chamber, Kareth of Vol quietly understood what was happening. He slowly stood and spoke to the room. "Humans are Deathworlders." The ambassadors looked at him. Kareth continued calmly. "On peaceful worlds, survival is easy. Species evolve to avoid danger. But on a death world, danger is everywhere." The room remained silent. "So Deathworld species evolve differently," Kareth said. "They do not run from danger. They learn how to fight it." The battle continued to rage across the human solar system. More Dominion ships burned. More human ships were destroyed. But one thing had become clear to everyone watching. This was not the easy invasion the Dominion expected. This was a war. And the Deathworlders were just getting started. The war that was supposed to last a few hours had already continued for 2 full days. Across the galaxy, the Galactic Council chamber remained full. Ambassadors who once mocked humanity were now sitting in complete silence as the battle continued to appear on the massive screens. The Zalcor Dominion had come with overwhelming power. Their fleets had destroyed entire civilizations before. But this time something was different. Human ships were still fighting. More shocking than that, the Dominion fleet was slowly losing control of the battle. New reports arrived every minute. Dominion cruiser destroyed. Human strike team has disabled another carrier. Enemy formation breaking apart. One council officer shook his head slowly. "This cannot be happening." Another ambassador whispered, "They were supposed to be the weakest species in the galaxy." At the edge of the chamber, Kareth of Vol watched the battle carefully. He had spent centuries studying dangerous planets and the species that survived on them. But even he had not fully understood what humanity was capable of. Because humans were doing something no other species had ever attempted. They were adapting in the middle of the war. Every hour their tactics changed. At the beginning of the invasion, human ships had fought defensively near Earth. But now they were pushing the Dominion fleet farther away from the planet. Human fleets began splitting into smaller attack groups. Instead of fighting the Dominion directly, they began targeting supply ships and command vessels. Without warning, small human fleets would suddenly appear behind Dominion lines. Then they would vanish again before the Dominion could respond. The Dominion commanders were becoming frustrated. Their powerful ships were built for large, organized battles. But humans refused to fight that way. They attacked fast. They attacked from strange directions. Sometimes they attacked with ships that looked heavily damaged. Dominion officers soon discovered the truth behind those damaged vessels. They were traps. Several Dominion ships exploded after getting too close to human ships that had been turned into floating bombs. Inside the Dominion flagship, the Admiral watched the battlefield with growing disbelief. "This species is primitive," he said angrily. "How are they defeating our fleets?" One of his officers hesitated before answering. "They are not fighting like normal civilizations, Admiral." "What does that mean?" "They appear to be comfortable in chaos." The Admiral stared at the officer. "Explain." The officer brought up a new analysis of human behavior. Humans evolved on a planet with constant danger. Natural disasters, predators, unstable environments. Another officer added quietly, "Their entire history is built around surviving impossible situations." The Admiral said nothing. Across the battlefield, another Dominion destroyer exploded as a group of human fighters attacked from extremely close range. On Earth, Admiral Hayes watched the battle from the command center. He looked tired, but calm. One officer approached him with the newest reports. "Sir, Dominion fleet movements are becoming disorganized." Hayes nodded slightly. "They expected us to surrender." Another officer smiled slightly. "They clearly underestimated us." Hayes looked back at the battle display. "They underestimated Earth." Far away, in the Galactic Council chamber, many ambassadors were beginning to understand something terrifying. The humans were not winning because they had stronger ships. They were winning because they refused to think like the rest of the galaxy. Civilized species avoided danger. Humans walked directly into it. One ambassador finally spoke the question that had been building in everyone's mind. "How did we misunderstand them so badly?" Kareth of Val slowly stepped forward. "Because you judged them by their appearance," he said. The room remained silent. "You saw soft skin and weak bodies. But you forgot something important." The ambassadors looked at him carefully. "They survived a level 12 death world." He pointed toward the battle screen where human ships continued to fight. Every storm on their planet tried to kill them. Every predator hunted them. Every natural disaster destroyed their cities. The room stayed quiet. "And yet," Kareth continued, "their species did not disappear. Instead, humans had built cities. Machines. Weapons. And eventually starships. The truth was finally clear to everyone watching the war. Earth had not created weak creatures. It had created survivors. And survivors were the most dangerous kind of warriors. Because they never stopped fighting. Back in the human solar system, the Dominion fleet began slowly retreating. For the first time in centuries. The conquerors of the galaxy were losing a war. And the Deathworlders were still advancing. The war had reached its third day. Across the human solar system, the battlefield was filled with drifting wreckage. Broken ships, burning debris, and silent fighters floated through space like ghosts of the battle. But the most shocking truth was now clear. The Zalcor Dominion fleet was retreating. At the center of the Dominion flagship, the Admiral stood silently as new reports appeared on the command screen. "Admiral, we have lost another cruiser. 2 more destroyers heavily damaged. Human strike groups approaching our rear formation." The Admiral clenched his hands behind his back. This was impossible. The Dominion had conquered worlds far stronger than this one. Entire star empires had fallen before their fleets. Yet this small death world species refused to break. Instead, they had grown stronger as the battle continued. Human fleets were now moving faster and striking harder. Their attacks were more organized than before. They had studied the Dominion during the battle. And now they understood their enemy. One officer spoke nervously. "Admiral, if we remain here, our fleet may be destroyed." The admiral stared at the tactical display. Human ships were slowly surrounding parts of the Dominion fleet. Small attack groups were cutting off retreat paths and destroying damaged ships. The Dominion had expected fear. Instead they found resistance. Relentless resistance. The admiral finally gave the order he never thought he would say. "Signal the fleet." The officers waited. "We are withdrawing." Across the battlefield, Dominion ships began turning away from the solar system. Massive engines ignited as the surviving warships began retreating into deep space. For the first time in centuries, the Zalcor Dominion had abandoned a conquest. On Earth, the human command center watched the movement carefully. One officer looked at the display with disbelief. "Sir, the Dominion fleet is pulling back." The room stayed silent for a moment. Then Admiral Hayes nodded slowly. They finally realized the truth. Another officer asked, "Should we pursue them?" Hayes shook his head. "No." He looked at the damaged human fleet on the display. Many ships were gone. Many brave pilots and soldiers had not returned. "We've already made our point." Outside Earth, the remaining human warships slowly regrouped. Fighters returned to their carriers. Rescue ships began searching for survivors among the wreckage. The war was over. And humanity was still standing. Far across the galaxy, the Galactic Council chamber was completely silent. Ambassadors from hundreds of civilizations stared at the final battle reports. The weakest species in the galaxy had just forced one of the most feared empires to retreat. No one laughed anymore. One council member finally spoke. "The Dominion, lost." Another ambassador whispered quietly. "To humans." At the front of the chamber, Kareth of Val slowly stepped forward. He looked at the ambassadors calmly. "I warned you." No one argued. They all remembered the day they had first seen Earth in the council reports. They remembered the laughter. The jokes about fragile humans and their dangerous planet. But now they understood the truth. Earth had never been a weakness. It had been a training ground. A world so dangerous that only the most determined species could survive there. Every storm had made humans stronger. Every disaster had forced them to adapt. Every threat had taught them how to fight. One council officer slowly updated the official galactic database. The old classification appeared on the screen. Humanity, primitive Deathworld species. Threat level, low. The officer paused. Then he erased it. A new classification replaced the old one. Humanity, Deathworlders. Extreme survival capability. Military threat level, severe. The message spread quickly across the galaxy. Civilizations that had once ignored Earth now began studying humanity carefully. Because the galaxy had learned an important lesson. Humans did not look powerful. They did not have claws or armor. But they had something far more dangerous. They had survived a world that tried to kill them every single day. And if a species could defeat their own planet, then defeating an invading empire was just another challenge. From that day forward, whenever the name Earth appeared in galactic discussions, no one laughed anymore. Because the galaxy now knew the truth. The Deathworlders had arrived. And the universe would never underestimate them again.